fam. Welcome to another episode of Good, Bad, and Ugly with Jose about real estate. Got a good guest for you today. Good friend of mine, Suzie. Woo!
Thank you, Jose. I'm so happy to be here.
Glad to have you. I've been trying to get you on forever.
Well, I finally made it on to the big wigs here.
Oh, thank you for saying that. That's awesome. So, Suzie, usually how I start my episodes is having my guests share their story of how they got into real estate and what they're doing today. So can you tell us your story, how you got into it, why you decided to choose real estate as a way to create wealth?
Well, as most people, we started maybe about 2 years ago. My husband Bob Greeley and I, Rich Dad Poor Dad, we finally read that book and then traveled down the journey into it. Bob does have a background of real estate. He's been a general contractor. He's got 23 years of being a residential appraiser. He's been a real estate agent. So it's been in the house. But we decided to invest in our own deals and go from there. And it's been a journey the last 2 years. About 6 months in, it didn't take us long. We joined a community of real estate investors. Actually, we joined a couple. I am a Gator lender and a sub-2 student. And then I also joined another small little group of owners and learning to become a business owner. Owners Club has been life-changing. So I did start investing, though, 25 years earlier by purchasing a dental office. And since then I purchased another one. So I wasn't really thinking of myself as an investor at that time. I'm a dentist and I wanted my own business. So went through and went down that road.
So you have 2 practices or just one?
I have one. I purchased one practice. I was leasing the office space there. Okay. It was an old building. And I was there about 11 years, but during that time, I got to know the dentists around me. And one of them, maybe 5 years earlier, said, I'm going to retire here in a little bit. When I'm ready, we work close to each other. Would you be interested? I own my own office space. And I'm like, yep, tell me. And so I was the first person he called when he was ready to retire.
Nice.
So then I purchased what was left of his practice. He had been cutting way back over the years instead of finishing strong. And I was able to purchase his, it's a condo space in an office building.
Okay. So, nice.
Yeah. So two very different investment stories. If you want to jump into my bad, my first purchase... That is once I got going over the last year and thinking about this, and I realized I've been investing for a while. That is my story. I was young in my 20s still and wanting to own my own practice. So went out searching and found an office, a small office, and the doctor had health problems, in quotes. And so I went in and checked out the office. You do chart audits and you kind of go through the numbers, write up a business plan, and it all looked pretty good until I got into the office. And then from everybody kind of connected to the office, the real story starts coming out. And that is that the dentist that was in there before me had a drug problem. So she was trading prescription pills, prescriptions for cocaine to her drug dealer who got busted and turned her in. So there was an interesting year or two of straightening out that office. It had been taken over back by the bank who actually sold it to me. They were not documenting a lot of things. I had to get an attorney involved and try to go back, but I was trying to sue a national bank. Needless to say, that didn't go very far, but I had figures that they gave me that were so fraudulent that some figures were 83% off.
Oh, wow. That's significant.
Yeah. And my attorney is like, well, they're nervous, but money-wise, they can outlast you forever. Right. Eventually it was like down to a decision of, ruin my credit, walk away from the deal, or work hard and build this up and make it work, which is what I did. So,
Nice. So you mentioned that you've been in three different communities. You and I, we work closely together in the Gator community. So can you kind of elaborate on how you invest in real estate utilizing your Gator community?
using the Gator community, which is private money lending or funding, and I got in, learned how to, look for deals, and wanting to learn network, and got in with people who had already been doing this for a while. So I met a great connector, Brian McMullen. He had a lot of background in it, had been working up to do it, and was connected with some good borrowers, some that had been doing it for a while. And so I just started looking at the deals that he had coming through, and I didn't have to invest all my money in one deal. I kind of split it up, and there was a couple of us funding the deal. So last year we got into our first loan. It was for a fix and flipper, and I put $25,000 in, and it was supposed to be for, I think, 135 days. Okay. And so set that up. We were supposed to get a 15% flat return. So just 15% straight in that time frame, not annualized over the year. But we also set up a late clause in there. And so the borrower, that deal, she ran into a few issues on refinancing that just took longer. And so I wasn't ever worried. She stays in contact. She is great, but it's real estate. Things can happen. Right. So she came back. I think it was, it was almost like 6 months that she came back and paid back. And we ended up making, I think, 33.8% on that loan.
Oh, wow.
In 6 months. So, and in that time frame, I had jumped in on another one of her deals, kind of set up the exact same way, put a little bit more money into that deal. Again, that one ran a little late. Never worried about not being paid back. It was just when. And again, with the late fees were all structured in there. I came back with about 34% profit on my money. That one was about 8 to 9 months, 290 some days to get that one back. It ran a little bit later, but made 34% on my money. So
I'll take that any day.
Yeah. When you have someone who's communicating with you, telling you where they're at, it's delayed, we're still just doing this is the next step, and she's always paid back on her deals. It wasn't a stress about that. It was just, okay, well, eventually here, check in every couple of weeks again, just to see, like, okay, are we getting close to, getting this wrapped up? So
you said that was like your first two. So obviously you learned, how to make sure that you protect yourself. So what tools or instruments did you use to kind of solidify or to secure your funds that you were lending out to make sure that you were able to get your money back if the worst scenario happened?
There was, the deed of trust or the mortgage on there being put on that. And then also being a promissory note was put up in there. And then joint venture agreement that was very structured on how everything would go with all the late fees and all of that. So title company, we had, I think, the lending insurance plan also in there. So from title. So it was pretty good. I would say the one thing I learned since then is we underwrote it. I mean, with my husband as an appraiser, but we did it more as your own, like looking to purchase your own property, working on ARV. And since then, I think a lot of us have learned to even tighten it up a little bit more. And, what is the as is value? Because people have been stuck in lending and then none of the work is done. Your money, trying to capture your money back. And you have to loan to own, the saying, as you know. Yeah. So you may have to go in and you have to consider all the holding costs and the expense on if you have to go in and foreclose on the property and take it back over. So, looking forward as I run my own deals, it's just tightening up with the good. That the best thing that we did there was a well vetted out, good past history with the borrower. And that's probably one of the best things I can recommend for anybody wanting to get in on a deal. Check out the borrower. What is their past history? How much experience? Things can happen and go on a deal, but do they have enough things to either cross collateralize or, that they've always closed on their deals and paid everybody back? So.
Right. So I don't know the level of expertise or knowledge that the audience has. So can you kind of share with everybody what cross collateralization is?
Yeah. That's where hopefully, like if your borrower owns multiple properties and they have equity in the properties already, if a house that you're lending on or a property maybe doesn't have enough equity in it to, pay you back and cover, they can tie it to another property with that value so that, if something happens and they can't pay you back, you can also, collect your money back from this other property. Is that a good description? I think that's a pretty good.
That's perfect. It's basically textbook. Mm-hmm. So one thing that I know about you, because that's how you and I work together, is you are the designated Gator Leader for Colorado. Can you tell everybody how you help those people that are looking to lend and what people can benefit from coming to our Gator meetup?
We host a Gator meetup because it's all about networking, getting to know, and I just try to be there as a resource. We have put together our own local little chat to ask questions in, reach out, put our information out that I have you and Mitch Zonnefield kind of have come in as my cohorts to help me cover everything. But it's being out there. I had a Colorado Gator and all of a sudden offered one night in the evening, to do a quick EMD deal, and he hadn't done one and he was looking for the paperwork. And it's like, reached out to me, got on the phone, helped him find the paperwork, asked him a few questions, and he hadn't gotten the information from the borrower. I'm like, he was working with one of our local TCs, Jordan Hirschfield. He had talked to her just before me and she was trying to help him too. And I'm like, go back and ask these questions and double check on this, ask them for this information, have them send it to you, and then come back to me if you have more questions. And I just want to be there, as I may not have done every type of deal. I have done other deals too. But I've connected to a lot of people too with experience. So if I don't know it, I will try to connect somebody to the right person. But just guiding people through and asking, have you checked I try to work with that. I have a pretty good checklist that I go through. And so, he didn't have the checklist, had never gotten a copy of the checklist, and just kind of try to be there for anybody starting up. What are the newbie things to do, how to share your information. A lot of us locally like our Blink cards, so it's just a quick, easy share, and very nice that if you update it, it updates to everybody that you've given it to. So, but that's kind of what we do. We also, you are my co-host with Mitch. We are bringing Zooms out to our local community. We've had tax strategists. We've had kind of some of the insurance banking plans, and we're coming out with a title company rep. She owns her own title company. I am trying to bring in the next few weeks one of our local real estate investors who does credit card stacking and teaches that. So I just got my first overview of that, and hopefully we'll bring that in. That in months you can hopefully build up quite a bit on credit cards that you can use. He has used, I think I've heard, 700,000 on a purchase of a house, all through credit card.
Wow.
So yeah, it's like he's really mastered it and is teaching it out there. So I hope to bring that to our community soon.
And just so the audience knows, just because we're talking about us being in Colorado, I mean, there's gators in almost probably every 50 states and even outside of the United States. And we are a resource for you. So if you are somebody who wants to lend but don't know how, you can always reach out to me or Suzie, and we can help you either get in touch with somebody that's in your local area, or you can work with us. I know I'm in Colorado, but I just lend a deal in Oklahoma. Spit it out. In Oklahoma. So I don't have to be in the state or a gator doesn't have to be living in that state that you are in order to help you fund the deal or find somebody that can. So, but I know that you're not just a lender. So you want to share the investing in real estate that you're doing as well?
Yes. I've kind of lent in as a private money partner into a couple deals. We have a house in southern Colorado with 6 acres, and that's rented out as a long-term rental. But we are working this year on figuring out, since it has 6 acres, what is our best use of that. We might go in and build storage facility on that land. I've been wanting to get into storage, so that would be an exciting project. And then in the Denver area, we bought a house subject to the existing mortgage, and we took a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, and we changed it into a 4-bedroom, 1 bath house, and we are renting it by the room. So and that property was really nice in that with Denver laws and its size, we can put a whole nother structure on that property. And so the old house will actually become an ADU, an additional dwelling unit. And our new area that we're going into is Bob, my husband, Bob Greeley. He is a wholesale dealer rep and developer in prefab modular construction. So we work with Skyline, and they merged with Champion Homes. And so we're getting ready to order a 2,200 square foot prefab modular 2-story building. So I think we're looking at 6.3 now as we finalize our plan. 6 bedrooms, 3 baths. That'll be a bigger structure on the same lot that we have the other house. So that'll actually be the bigger structure. So
okay. And what's the time frame on that for?
From the time you order it, it takes about 3 months from the factory to be put together, and then they ship it out to you. You can put them up in almost a week. Within days, they are up, and you take a crane, they come out on a trailer, and it's called stitching them together. So you put it together on like the ends. If you're joining 2 ends, they'll have the siding on where it's whole, but if you're stitching it together across that line, they don't put the siding there. You finish it up on that area so that it looks whole and you don't see a seam. Gotcha. And so, yeah, you can do 2 stories, you can do single family, but you can do duplexes, tris, quads. We almost had a property where we were going to put a 4-plex on.
Oh, wow.
It's going to be prefab modular. So in our area in Colorado here, the Denver metro, the cost of construction is the big savings. If you're going to do a traditional stick frame build in the Denver metro area, you're running right now at about $250 to $350 a square foot to build. With the foundation and the hookup of utilities, and everything with prefab modular, we can bring it in at about $140 to $160 a square foot. A little change on depending on what kind of finishes you want there, how high end, but that's a lot of savings. And then I'm just up in the foothills of the mountains. If you come up here by me, the actual cost to build right up here is running about $350 to $700 a square foot right now.
Wow.
So if you can find on the hills and the mountains, if you can find a lot where you can actually get the truck in with the crane, you can do quite a bit of savings there.
I think that would be the caveat, right? Being able to get the crane up in that spot, because
we drove by a lot a couple months ago that's close by us. It was only a couple miles down the road. So we went and drove by it, and I'm like, oh, I don't think we'll get a crane in on this lot. It's not an option. So, but there is some properties, and right now land is starting to see a little bit of drop in price. Just in the last few weeks around this area. So hopefully some good deals will be opening up soon.
Nice.
So
the name of the channel is The Good and Bad. You did share bad with your dentistry, but can you share a good and bad about real estate? Anything that's gone on in your real estate career?
Well, the loans have been very good. I'm looking to build that up. Yeah. Making last year, we just for jumping in and learning and working with a connector is a great way to get started, but you do have to check them out. What have they done on their past? There are some very good connectors out there that they are already connected to good borrowers. They've already vetted them out. They know the paperwork, and it's a great way to learn. And that's how I did my first few loans. And I was walked through step by step. Brian is very good, even though we have a good underwriting background, Bob and I, it still is a little different doing a loan. And every step of the way, we were sent the information. We went over it ourselves, learned our skills ourselves, and then hopped on a call or a Zoom with Brian and went over it together to make sure we were, doing everything correctly. And so a great way to learn that way is finding, and there are some good connectors out in the communities. That's what I highly recommend. And that was very good. Making 34% on your money in under a year is pretty good. So
I agree. And then you did twice, even better.
Yep. And then, the bad, things have been going pretty good. You do have to be ready we look at multiple exit strategies when we look at deals.
Right.
So that we have different ways. When we got into the Southern Colorado in Pueblo, it's actually, when we partnered into that deal, we brought equity in. The house was already owned by our partner, and it was under a lease option purchase agreement, which means he had a renter in there who was trying to build up his credit to actually purchase the house.
Right.
And the house to pass inspection to qualify for a loan needed a little bit of work done. And that's where we came in and partnered in. And seemed like it was a great deal. We were making good monthly with his costs right there. And then when he did actually purchase it, there was going to be a good payout on it. That he one night just packed up and moved out. So that was a quick, what are we going to do there? And you got to be ready to pivot. Things don't always go as planned. We could have sold it. We ended up finding somebody else who we decided that we're going to keep the property right now. And because it was zoned where we could do a lot more with the property than what it's being used for. And so that just opened the door to a lot of things for us there. So with the house on there, we found new renters, long-term renters, and they're covering the cost of the property. It's not making us as much money at the moment. Sure. But it gave us time to really start looking at, what are all the different ways we could use this property. It's 6 acres. Our partner actually has first right of refusal on quite a few of the acres surrounding us too.
Oh,
So if
cool.
we wanted to, we could go through and purchase more of the land around us and do something bigger, or we could just stay on the 6 acres. And so, yeah. So, just you got to learn to be ready to pivot, look at a deal, having multiple exit strategies ready to go.
Right.
So there was like a day or two of like, oh, what are we going to do? And a little disappointment that it wasn't going through, but really looked at the property a lot closer, found out and opened our eyes to other ideas too. And now we're looking at a little gem just sitting there waiting for us to make the final decisions and set up everything ready to go.
That's awesome.
So
So you mentioned that you guys do have a property that you rent out by the room, basically utilizing the co-living strategy. I know it's not necessarily a bad story; it's kind of unfortunate. Are you willing to share that story with the um, unfortunate tenant?
we did have an unfortunate tenant this winter. We had a nurse living in there, and we had great people in there that actually a lot of the people like living in there. They become friends. They communicate with us. She got sick this winter. She was a nurse, and it was either COVID or pneumonia. And so she was just kind of quarantining into her room, mostly. Another one of the rooms, he works in a restaurant, and he was bringing her home extra food, putting it in the fridge for her. And they hadn't seen her in a day. They had texted with her the day before. And so finally, one of the roommates went and knocked on the door. And she was sick and she had passed away. She wasn't that old either. She was in her 20s. So all of a sudden we were getting the calls. Police were there, everything. They, came in, checked out to see if it was a suspicious death. Did determine that she was sick, and it was one of the two. But it was kind of all of a sudden we reached out to other people in the community. There are a few people who have also been through this, because you
Right.
want to kind of keep your tenants. You don't want to really give them a reason that's a reason to move out or anything. Everybody did stay, but it was a tough week dealing with it. So we offered up help for them, but we didn't do help like, well, if you want to leave. We didn't say any of that or offer that. Just kind of
Right.
go through that time. And kind of one of those, there's the frequently asked questions, and then there's the we thought of doing an episode of the infrequently asked questions, what to do when some of
Right.
these weird
Absolutely.
things happen. And so, we got in there, we brought in professional cleaners to clean up the room. We had the room furnished, so we just threw out all the bedding and brought in new bedding. And we got the room re-rented within a few weeks. But it was very kind of
Stressful.
stressful. Yeah. My partner got to know her mother quite well during that time and still is in contact with her. And she was like, she loved living in the house. You guys have been so easy to work with. She loved the roommates. So we really got some good feedback during that on the good side. But
Right.
it's really sad. And it could happen in any of the rentals that we have. And luckily it wasn't. There could be a lot worse where,
Right.
you know,
And that's the reason why I asked you to bring it up, because co-living is kind of a new strategy, and people don't understand why people would do it. And this is a prime example why it's awesome to offer this. One, it gives people an affordable way of living. They have their own place, but it also fosters a way of being a small community, right? This roommate, for lack of better terms, was bringing her home food, because she didn't want to go anywhere because she was not feeling good. So um, you don't always have that when you live on your own, and So having a roommate that was looking out for her was great. And then in this case was even better because had that roommate not be there and having that kind of relationship with her, who knows how long she would have been sitting in a room before somebody came to find her. So
That's true. That same week, my mother-in-law, who's 87, took a fall and she spent the night on the floor. She couldn't get back up until my sister-in-law went and checked on her.
yeah. So that's the reason why I want to bring it up so people understand that co-living there is a purpose for it, and
Yes.
does serve just besides affordability. Most co-living owners are trying to foster that community within the group that are living there, so that each of y'all can become, like a second family to each other. So, but that was awesome. I'm glad you're doing that and that worked out for you. And the other thing too is to show people that are watching this episode that you can have some quote unquote bad things happen, but you can overcome them and still continue to do business, and it's not so bad as you think it is. It's not a catastrophe. It's tough going through it, but I mean, at the back end of it, you can see that you actually can come through some hard times.
Yep. Yep. And we got closer to the tenants that are there kind of through that week. There was a lot of back and forth right at that moment that we heard about it, because we're like 35, 40 minutes away. And like, do you want us to drive over right now while the cops are there? And like, they're wrapping it up. We'll call you if we need you. You know what I mean? Right at that moment.
Sure.
So it wasn't, but yeah, it built kind of a teamwork with our tenants too.
Right.
We were there trying to do things on the back end to help them. And they were there because they were there right there, just keeping us updated. And having that good communication helps.
Absolutely. So there's one word or bit of advice you would give somebody who was watching this episode. What would you give them as advice?
Advice. I think that, getting out there, it's building your network, meeting people. We have not, Bob and I have not done anything on our own. When we started 2 years ago, we were going to go get a property or two on our own and figure out landlording all on our own. We haven't done anything on our own. We have partnered into everything. And from that, we are learning from people who are, steps ahead of us.
Right.
And that's probably one of the best advice is just be ready to ask a lot of questions. There's a lot of good people. I show up to live events. I show up to Zoom meetings and just try to get out there. So that I've met in 2 years, I've met so many people. And then it's just, yeah. So it's like, I don't have to know everything. And when I come up with something, I know people who have done that, or I know people to ask who may know. And so that's probably the biggest advice for getting in here.
Awesome. So if somebody wanted to reach out to you and see if they could utilize your private money lending services, or maybe want to partner with you on a deal in the future, how would they get a hold of you?
On Instagram, it's at SE Caspers. And then my email is Suzie at creativepropertycapital.com. That's probably the best.
Okay. And don't worry, folks, as always, I'll have that in the description for you so you don't have to play the video back, as much as I'd love for you to watch this thing 3 times. And also, I know most of you will be watching this on YouTube, but I will have this on the Spotify network in case you want to watch it while you're at the gym or just driving in the car. It's there. I know a lot of people like to listen to it on the radio. So making sure that I give people different options as they watch this. So Suzie, always great talking with you. Great to have you on the podcast, and looking forward to continue doing work with you and building our community here in Colorado, and hopefully that kind of goes beyond our borders. So thank you so much for taking time for me today. To the audience out there, thank you for watching. As the old saying goes, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave comments. If there's something that you want to hear about or learn about, please leave it in the comments, and I will make sure that I find a guest that will answer those questions for you. So until next time, have a good one, fam.
Thank you, Jose.